Hello everybody, this is Professor Hill. This is a short video for our class, Introduction to Ethics, Philosophy 2306 here at St. Philip's College. This is the spring online version. Today is March the 21st, 2018. It's Wednesday and we're looking at week number 9 in our class. We had spring break last week, but we had a assignment due Sunday. The grades are up to date. We've got another one posted, another new assignment, a discussion set for this upcoming Sunday, the 25th. And what we're looking at is some more on IHL, International Humanitarian Law. And specifically what we're doing this week is looking at a program put out by the International Committee of the Red Cross, which is called Exploring Humanitarian Law, so EHL. And that program has a number of different resources, all available online, videos, short stories, treaties, all kinds of materials and resources. And they have it broken down through EHL, their program, into 5 different modules, and we're looking at the first module for the program. And it's really about bystander theory. It's about essentially why the Red Cross began. We looked at a short video called The Story of an Idea about Henry Dunant, the founder, how he had come upon this battle, the Battle of Solferino, and he was so moved by the sight of the wounded that he set up a temporary hospital and began to take in the wounded from both sides into this little chapel, and with the help of the townspeople, he began to treat and help and provide assistance for the wounded and injured of both sides. Now that's the kind of humble origins of the Red Cross. But it's also a story about why he acted. He was not legally required to act. And you might even have an interesting discussion about whether or not he was morally required to act. Now, I think it's commendable. And I mentioned yesterday briefly that we're going to have to sort out some distinctions between what is morally required and then also what's beyond that to this kind of aspirational level, which is something that we'd like to say is admirable and virtuous, but maybe not necessarily required of us by ethics. So we're looking at both the law and the ethics. And the case study is about an assassination. So there's some background information about South Africa. This is a political assassination. And it was witnessed by a woman who stepped forward, called the police, gave them the license plate of the car, identified the individuals, testified in court, even though this meant great risk to her. They had just shot a very powerful and important politician in South Africa, in broad daylight. These were people who were not kidding around. And I think we might have understood if she didn't step forward, and yet we somehow do think it's admirable that she did. So we want to look at IHL and think to ourselves, well, first of all, is there a requirement here? But that whole first module is really about the fundamental values that the Red Cross rests on. All of IHL is a set of humanitarian values. We saw that in the Story of an Idea, the short video, where the Red Cross today does disaster preparation, disaster relief, but they're also very actively involved in the spread of humanitarian values. And that underpins a lot of the practical, the treaties, the agreements, the rules that we see in IHL are resting upon this philosophical foundation of human rights and also these values, these fundamental humanitarian values. And so we want to bring that analysis to this. And I want to just mention one quick thing about this. I want you to put in the back of your head a concept we got from our textbook. Before we left that in chapter 7, we were looking at virtue ethics. And there's this case about Aristotle and the golden mean. And there's this kind of famous case study about if you're walking down the beach and you see a person drowning, you're not legally required to help that person. You don't have to put yourself at risk to jump into the water and swim out and try to save the drowning person. But if somebody does do that, we think it's admirable, it's brave. And Aristotle had this concept of the golden mean, that you might want to make a call first. You might want to make sure that you could look around. If you think before you act, there might be a flotation device you could take with you. You might do it in a way which is safer, more efficient, smarter. If you call 911 before you hop in the water. But his point is, he does want you to act, though. The other end is not to be paralyzed by fear or to say, I don't care about that and move on. He would say that in the middle ground, that in between the extremes of acting rationally or not acting at all, that you can act prudently in the middle, wisely in the middle. So you want to take a minute, think about it, but then act. Well, I think with the case of the woman who calls the police in this situation, I think she does that. Now, again, it's dangerous for her to do this. And I think there is a good argument to say that we don't want to necessarily say that we would require her ethically to get involved, even if we find it admirable. So the next question, too, is there something in international humanitarian law which would cover this? And that's kind of complicated. I'll talk about some more of that tomorrow on Thursday, the 22nd. But I want to just put this in the ethical framework tonight and say, look, think about the ethics. Think about Aristotle's golden mean. Where do you think her action falls on the ethics side? We'll come back to some of the legal side tomorrow. But is there a parallel between the drowning person and the murder victim? Have you been involved in a situation where you felt like there was a conflict in you? Maybe I should call and report this to the police, but there'll be a risk. Maybe I don't want to. What are the factors that weigh into that? I can tell you that I have personally had to face that decision. I was actually the witness to a homicide. And I had to think to myself, do I want to place myself, my wife, in danger by calling the police? That was a lot of factors all suddenly coalesced pretty quickly in you in terms of your concern about what's prudent and what's protection for yourself and your family versus is there a right thing to do? Should I call? And what's the obligation there? Is it a legal obligation? Is it a moral obligation? I can tell you, this particular homicide was a drug deal that went bad, and it was a triple homicide. Shot 3 people dead in broad daylight. This was in Washington, D.C. And I'll tell you my decision tomorrow. How does that sound? Thursday the 22nd. I'll give you an update, let you know what I did in that case, and why, and what the factors were, and how I think that also applies to our case study that we're looking at for this Sunday night, the 25th. So, again, in the meantime, take care, have a good night. Contact me if you have any questions at all, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.